The conference room floats above Manhattan like a glass cathedral suspended in darkness. Floor-to-ceiling windows frame a universe of city lights. 10 million windows burning against the December cold, each one a tiny prayer to ambition. The table stretches 20 feet of polished Brazilian rosewood, its surface so pristine it mirrors the tension of the men seated around it. Crystal decanters of aged whiskey catch the light. A private chef has prepared truffle-infused appetizers that cost more than most people's monthly rent. The air smells of leather and expensive cologne and the particular metallic tang of serious money. Maya Okonkwo, 26, moves along the perimeter of the room with practiced invisibility. She wears the standard uniform of the catering staff, black slacks, white button-down, hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her hands are steady as she refills water glasses, her footsteps silent on the marble floor. No one looks at her. No one ever does. She has learned to move through these spaces like a ghost, to become so unremarkable that powerful men speak freely in her presence, never imagining that the woman pouring their Pellegrino holds a doctorate in applied mathematics from MIT, that she completed her dissertation on quantum cryptography at 23, that she once lectured at Cambridge before everything fell apart. They see black slacks and a white shirt and assume she is furniture. They speak of billions while she calculates their margins of error in her head. They debate mathematics they barely understand, while she silently corrects their calculations. But that was before her mother's diagnosis, before the insurance company denied coverage for the experimental treatment, before Maya emptied her savings, maxed out every credit card, sold everything she owned except the books she couldn't bear to part with, before she discovered that a PhD means nothing when you need $200,000 by January. Now she works 3 jobs, catering events in the evenings, where she watches people discuss her field of expertise without ever knowing she's listening. Data entry during the day, her overqualified fingers typing numbers that hold no meaning. Weekend shifts at a bodega in Queens, scanning groceries at 3 in the morning. She sleeps 4 hours a night when she's lucky, 5 when she's blessed. The debt compounds daily, a mathematical certainty she understands with terrible precision. She can calculate exactly when she'll drown, can plot the curve of her financial destruction with the same accuracy she once used to model quantum states. Tonight's event is different from the usual corporate gatherings. The security is tighter, armed guards at every entrance wearing earpieces and expressionless faces, electronic jammers blocking cell signals, non-disclosure agreements thicker than phone books that had to be signed in triplicate before anyone could enter. The caterers were searched twice. Maya's bag was X-rayed. Every detail screams that something important is happening here, something that could move markets and make or break fortunes. The men around the table aren't just wealthy. They're the kind of wealthy that shapes nations, hedge fund titans, private equity princes, men whose decisions ripple through economies, whose phone calls start wars and end careers. They sip 100-year-old scotch and speak in the clipped language of power, never raising their voices because they've never needed to. Maya catches fragments of conversation as she moves. Something about an algorithm, a trading system, numbers in the billions. She keeps her eyes down, her expression blank, but her mind catalogs every word with the same automatic precision that once made her the youngest recipient of the Fields Medal nomination. Harrison Cole, V.O. Gentlemen, what you're about to see will redefine the future of quantitative finance. Maya glances up briefly. Harrison Cole, 45, stands at the head of the table with the practiced confidence of a man who has never been told no. His suit costs more than Maya earns in a year. His watch could pay off her mother's medical bills twice over. He gestures toward a presentation screen with the theatrical flair of a revival preacher. At the opposite end of the table sits Alexander Thorne, 52, founder and CEO of Thorne Industries, a man whose net worth fluctuates by billions depending on the day's market close. His suit is charcoal gray, impeccably tailored but somehow understated, the clothes of a man who no longer needs to prove anything. He watches Cole with the stillness of a predator assessing prey, his gray eyes revealing nothing. Where Cole is theatrical, Thorne is contained. Where Cole fills space with words, Thorne fills it with silence. He built his empire not through flash, but through patience, through the ability to see what others missed. Maya refills Thorne's water glass. He doesn't acknowledge her existence. His fingers are thick with calluses despite his obvious wealth, the hands of someone who built things before he built fortunes. She notices these details because noticing is what she does. It's what mathematicians do. They see patterns where others see chaos. The presentation materials are spread across the table in front of Cole. Thick binders, glossy charts, equations that dance at the edge of Maya's peripheral vision. She forces herself not to look directly at them. Not yet. She has learned patience in these rooms, learned to gather information slowly, to assemble pictures from fragments the way her grandmother used to piece together quilts from scraps of fabric. Her phone buzzes silently in her pocket, a reminder to check on her mother's evening medication. Grace Okonkwo is 58 years old, spent 30 years cleaning other people's houses, and is now fighting cancer with the same quiet determination she brought to everything else. The experimental treatment is working, slowly, miraculously. But each round of therapy costs more than Maya earns in 3 months. She is invisible. She is nothing. She is exactly where she needs to be. The presentation screen illuminates with cascading equations and algorithmic flowcharts. Harrison Cole clicks through slides with the rhythm of a conductor leading a symphony. Harrison Cole. The Prometheus algorithm represents 15 years of research by the most brilliant minds in computational mathematics. We're talking about a system that can predict market movements with 94% accuracy within a 6-hour window. Murmurs ripple through the room. Victor Ashworth, a British hedge fund manager with a reputation for hostile takeovers, leans forward with naked hunger in his eyes. Victor Ashworth. 94%? You're certain of these numbers? Harrison Cole. The algorithm has been back-tested against 20 years of market data. The mathematics are irrefutable. Dr. Chen's original research laid the groundwork, but our team has perfected the implementation. Maya's hand trembles slightly as she sets down a fresh carafe of water. Dr. Chen, Professor Lin Chen, her doctoral advisor at MIT, the woman who had championed Maya's work, who had called her the most intuitive mathematical mind of her generation, the woman who had died in a car accident 3 years ago, leaving behind a lifetime of unpublished research. Maya forces herself to breathe, to stay invisible. Alexander Thorne. Dr. Chen passed away in 2021. How did you acquire her research? His voice is quiet, measured, the voice of a man who has learned that power speaks softly. Harrison Cole. MIT released her papers to qualified researchers after the appropriate period of academic review. My team has spent 3 years building upon her foundation. The Prometheus algorithm is the culmination of that work. Cole clicks to a new slide. Mathematical equations fill the screen. Dense, complex, beautiful, in the way that only mathematics can be beautiful. Maya's eyes move across the formulas with automatic comprehension, her mind translating symbols into meaning faster than conscious thought. The equations are elegant. Whoever wrote them understood the deep structure of computational systems, the way numbers dance when they're properly arranged. Maya feels a familiar ache in her chest, the longing for the work she was meant to do, the life she was meant to live. And then she sees it, a small detail, a single variable in a nested equation, a notation system that she would recognize anywhere because she helped create it. The symbol sits there on the screen like a signature, her signature, hidden in plain sight. Her breath catches, her heart pounds against her ribs like a prisoner demanding release. Victor Ashworth. The asking price for exclusive licensing? Harrison Cole. $3 billion. The number hangs in the air like smoke. $3 billion for an algorithm built on stolen work. $3 billion for mathematics that Maya helped develop in a cramped MIT lab, fueled by bad coffee and pure intellectual passion. Alexander Thorne. That's a significant investment. I'll need to see the complete documentation, the proofs, everything. Harrison Cole. Of course, I have the full technical specifications prepared, but I should warn you, the mathematics are quite advanced. You'll want your best analyst to review them. This isn't something that can be understood by just anyone. He says this last part with a small, condescending smile. The smile of a man who has never doubted his own superiority. The smile of a man who has never imagined that the server refilling water glasses could dismantle his entire empire with a single sentence. Maya keeps her eyes down, but her mind is racing, calculating, analyzing. The trap is set. The pieces are in motion. She just needs to wait for the right moment to spring it. The presentation continues, but Maya is no longer simply observing. She is hunting. As she moves around the room, her eyes scan every slide, every document, every equation. The training she tried so hard to abandon floods back. Pattern recognition, logical analysis, the ability to see connections that others miss. Her mind becomes what it was always meant to be, a weapon of pure mathematics. The first inconsistency appears in slide 17, a convergence theorem that Cole attributes to standard gradient descent optimization. But Maya recognizes the underlying structure. It's not gradient descent at all. It's a modification of the Chin-Okonkwo recursive framework, a methodology she developed during her second year of doctoral research. She remembers the exact afternoon she solved the key lemma, October 14th, raining outside, the smell of burned coffee filling the lab. The second inconsistency emerges in slide 23, a stability proof that claims originality but contains notation that Maya herself invented. The little flourish on the sigma symbol, the unconventional placement of subscripts, her mathematical fingerprints, as distinctive as DNA. Professor Chen had always teased her about the flourish, said it made Maya's equations look like calligraphy. The third inconsistency is more subtle, a temporal impossibility. Cole claims his team began development in 2022, but the core algorithm references a mathematical constant that wasn't defined until Professor Chen's final paper, which Maya helped write in the last weeks before the accident. A paper that was never published. A paper that existed only in the MIT archive under classified access. A paper that Cole could not possibly have seen unless he had obtained it illegally. Harrison Cole. As you can see, the predictive accuracy holds across multiple asset classes. Equities, bonds, commodities, even cryptocurrency. The Prometheus algorithm doesn't just predict, it anticipates. Maya's hands shake as she arranges appetizers on a side table, not from fear, from rage. This man didn't just steal research, he stole her research, her work. 3 years of intellectual labor that she poured into those equations, only to have them claimed by a man who probably couldn't derive a basic integral without assistance. He took the midnight hours she spent debugging proofs, the tears she cried when theorems refused to cooperate, the breakthrough moments that made her feel like she was touching the face of God through mathematics. She thinks of her mother in the hospital bed, tubes running into her arms, fighting for every breath. She thinks of the collection notices piling up like accusations. She thinks of the dreams she sacrificed because the world decided that a black woman from Southside Chicago couldn't possibly be a mathematical genius, couldn't possibly have anything worth stealing. She thinks of Professor Chen, who believed in her when no one else did, whose life's work is now being sold to the highest bidder by a con artist in a $10,000 suit. Victor Ashworth. I'm prepared to make a preliminary commitment, subject to due diligence, of course. Harrison Cole. Naturally, though I should mention that we've received significant interest from parties in Singapore and Dubai. Time is of the essence. Alexander Thorne has remained silent throughout the last hour, his gray eyes fixed on Cole with an intensity that would make lesser men uncomfortable. He taps a single finger against the table, a gesture so small it barely registers, yet somehow dominating the room. Alexander Thorne. I want to understand the mathematics. Walk me through the core derivation. Harrison Cole. I'm afraid the technical details are beyond the scope of this presentation. My chief mathematician can arrange a... Alexander Thorne. You developed this algorithm, yes? Spent 3 years building upon Dr. Chen's foundation? Harrison Cole. In collaboration with my team, yes. Alexander Thorne. Then explain to me the significance of the Chen constant on slide 31. Why is it crucial to the convergence proof? The room goes quiet. Cole's confident smile falters for just a moment, a crack in the facade that only Maya notices. He doesn't know. Of course he doesn't know. The Chen constant is named for Professor Chen, but Maya was the one who derived it. She was the one who spent 6 months proving its properties, who nearly dropped out of the program in frustration before finally achieving the breakthrough that made everything else possible. Harrison Cole. The Chen constant ensures stability across iterative calculations. It's a technical necessity for the recursive framework, a non-answer, a deflection. Maya recognizes it because she's heard it 100 times from students who didn't do the reading. Thorne's expression doesn't change, but something shifts in his eyes. Suspicion, calculation. The instincts of a man who has built an empire by knowing when someone is lying to him. Maya sets down a tray of hors d'oeuvres. Her decision crystallizes like ice forming over still water. For 3 years, she has been silent. For 3 years, she has watched powerful men make decisions based on assumptions and ignorance. For 3 years, she has swallowed her knowledge, her anger, her pride. $3 billion, 3 years of stolen work, a lifetime of being invisible. Professor Chen's voice echoes in her memory. Maya, you have a gift. Don't let anyone convince you it's anything less than extraordinary. Her mother's voice. Baby girl, you were meant for something special. Her own voice. The voice she silenced when the bills started piling up. I know who I am. Not anymore. Not one more minute of silence. Not one more moment of invisibility. Maya steps forward, away from the walls, away from invisibility, away from everything she has been for the past 3 years. Her heart pounds so hard she can feel it in her throat, but her voice, when it emerges, is steady as stone. Maya. The Chen constant ensures bounded convergence in non-linear recursive systems by establishing an upper limit on eigenvalue drift. Without it, the algorithm would produce catastrophic oscillations after approximately 10,000 iterations. Every head in the room turns. Harrison Cole stares at her like she has materialized from thin air, like the furniture has suddenly begun to speak fluent Latin. The other billionaires exchange confused glances, their certainties momentarily shaken. A server is speaking. A server is speaking mathematics. A server is speaking mathematics that makes sense. Harrison Cole. Excuse me, who? Someone get this woman out of Maya. I derived that constant in 2019 in Professor Chen's lab at MIT. It took me 6 months to prove the convergence properties, and another 3 months to generalize it for the recursive framework that forms the backbone of this algorithm. She walks toward the presentation screen, her footsteps echoing in the stunned silence. The click of her worn black flats on the marble floor is the only sound in the room. Cole's face has gone pale. His confident smile has frozen into something closer to a grimace. Harrison Cole. This is absurd. Security. Alexander Thorne. Let her speak. The command is quiet but absolute. 2 words that carry more weight than Cole's entire presentation. The security guards hesitate at the door, looking between Cole and Thorne, and the hierarchy is instantly clear. In this room, there is only one man whose word is law, and it isn't Harrison Cole. Cole's mouth opens and closes like a fish drowning in air, his objections dying unspoken. Maya reaches the screen. She points to the nested equation on slide 31. Maya. This notation system, the modified sigma with the elevated subscript, I invented it. Professor Chen and I developed it together because standard mathematical notation couldn't adequately express the recursive relationships we were modeling. It exists nowhere in published literature. It exists only in our private research notes, notes that were classified by MIT after her death and restricted to authorized personnel only. She advances to slide 17, Maya con TD. This convergence theorem isn't gradient descent. It's a modification of the Chen-Okonkwo recursive framework, my doctoral thesis, which I defended in 2020. The framework is cited 3 times in this algorithm without attribution. Mr. Cole, would you like to explain how your original research contains wholesale reproductions of work that was embargoed by MIT? Harrison Cole. This is ridiculous. She's lying. She's just a... Maya. Just a what, Mr. Cole? The question hangs in the air like a blade. Harrison Cole. You're a server. You pour water. You can't possibly understand. Maya. I am Dr. Maya Okonkwo. I hold a PhD in applied mathematics from MIT. I was Professor Lin Chen's research assistant for 4 years. I was nominated for the Fields Medal at 23, the youngest nominee from an American university in 15 years. And I understand every single line of mathematics on this screen, because I wrote most of it. The room has gone absolutely still. Even the hum of the air conditioning seems to fade. Maya stands at the center of a room full of the most powerful men in finance. And for the first time in 3 years, she feels like herself again. She turns to face the room. The men who ignored her, who looked through her, who assumed she was nothing, they stare at her now, with expressions ranging from shock to dawning comprehension. Maya, Kane TD, but I'm not finished. She clicks to slide 37. Maya, Kane TD. The algorithm has a flaw, a fundamental error in the boundary conditions that will cause cascading failures under specific market conditions, specifically when volatility exceeds 3.7 standard deviations from the mean. Mr. Cole's 94% accuracy only holds in normal market conditions. The moment there's a significant crash or surge, the algorithm doesn't just fail, it inverts. It will make exactly the wrong prediction with the same confidence level. It's like a compass that points north until you need it most, and then spins wildly. Victor Ashworth. You're saying, in a market crisis? Maya. In a market crisis, this algorithm would tell you to buy when you should sell, hold when you should run. It would accelerate your losses exponentially. Any fund using this system during a black swan event wouldn't just lose money. It would be annihilated. The room erupts. Victor Ashworth slams his hand on the table hard enough to rattle the crystal decanters. Another investor stands so abruptly his chair tips over behind him. A third pulls out his phone to call his lawyers. NDA be damned. The careful choreography of power has shattered. These men who pride themselves on composure, on never showing weakness, are now scrambling like the building is on fire. Because it is. Their $3 billion building is on fire. Harrison Cole stands frozen at the head of the table, his face the color of old paper, his confident posture collapsed into something small and desperate. Harrison Cole. She's making this up. She can't prove any of this. Maya Mitt maintains archived copies of all classified research with cryptographic timestamps. My thesis defense was recorded. Professor Chen's lab notebooks are preserved in the university archive. Every claim I've made tonight can be verified within 24 hours. She turns to look directly at Harrison Cole. Her voice is quiet now, but it carries to every corner of the room. Maya Kantidi, you stole the work of a dead woman. You stole my work. And then you tried to sell it to people who would have lost billions because you didn't understand what you were selling. Cole's mouth works, but no sound comes out. The mask has crumbled completely. Behind it is nothing but terror and the desperate calculations of a man watching his entire world collapse. Maya Kantidi. You'll never understand this. That's what you think when you see someone like me. That's what makes people like you dangerous. You assume intelligence wears a certain face, speaks with a certain accent, comes from a certain background. You see a black woman in a server's uniform and you think nothing. You think invisible. You think safe. You think not worth my attention. She straightens to her full height. The room feels electric, charged with the reversal of every assumption these men have ever made. Maya Kantidi. You were wrong. The transformation is complete. Harrison Cole stands alone at the head of the table, but the power has drained from him like blood from a wound. The other billionaires have pushed back their chairs, creating physical distance from contagion. Their lawyers are already on the phone, voices hushed and urgent. Their security teams are documenting everything, taking photos, recording notes, building the paper trail that will end Harrison Cole's career. Victor Ashworth, you absolute fool. Do you have any idea what you've done? What you've exposed us to? Harrison Cole. Victor, I can explain. The mathematics are sound. The algorithm works. Another investor. Stolen. The mathematics are stolen. From MIT, from a dead woman and her graduate student. God, the liability alone. Alexander Thorne. Remove him. 2 words. That's all it takes. Security guards materialize at Cole's elbows. He tries to gather his presentation materials, his laptop, the documents that were supposed to make him billions. Alexander Thorne, can't eat his do. Leave everything. It's evidence now. Cole's face crumples. In the space of 15 minutes, he has gone from being the smartest man in the room to being escorted out like a common criminal. The guards guide him toward the door, and Maya steps aside to let him pass. He pauses, looks at her. For a moment, something like hatred flickers in his eyes, but it's quickly replaced by fear. He knows what comes next. The investigations, the lawsuits, the complete and irreversible destruction of everything he built on someone else's genius. Harrison Cole, barely a whisper. The other. Investors filter out, phones pressed to ears, already coordinating their damage control. But Alexander Thorne remains seated, his gray eyes fixed on Maya with an intensity that would be unsettling if she weren't running on pure adrenaline. Alexander Thorne. Sit down, please. It's not a command, it's a request, perhaps the first genuine request this man has made in years. Maya hesitates, then takes the seat across from him. The vast table stretches between them like a battlefield after the war is over. Alexander Thorne, Dr. Okonkwo. I've spent 40 years reading people, building an empire on the ability to know who's telling the truth and who's selling smoke. I've sat across from presidents and princes, con men and geniuses. I sat through that entire presentation and I didn't see it. I looked right at you a dozen times, and I saw nothing. He pauses. Something shifts in his expression. Not quite vulnerability, but an acknowledgement of fallibility that clearly costs him. It's the expression of a man reconsidering fundamental assumptions. Alexander Thorne, Con TD. You did. In 5 minutes, while pouring water, Maya, I had an advantage. It was my work. Alexander Thorne. Don't diminish yourself. I've had 1,000 experts review deals for me. Not one of them could have done what you just did. Not one of them would have had the courage to stand up in this room and challenge a man surrounded by security and lawyers and money. He leans forward. Alexander Thorne, Cantidu. Who are you? Not the credentials. I can verify those. I mean, who are you? Maya feels the question land somewhere deep. For 3 years, she is hidden, diminished herself, become small, so that she could survive. Maya, I'm the daughter of a janitor and a home health aide from the south side of Chicago. I taught myself calculus from library books when I was 12 because we couldn't afford a tutor, and the school said I wasn't ready for advanced classes. I got into MET on a full scholarship and spent 4 years proving I belonged there, proving it to professors who questioned my admission, to classmates who assumed I was there to fill a quota, to a system that wanted me to fail. I was supposed to be the first black woman to hold a tenured position in their mathematics department. Her voice catches. She forces herself to continue. Maya Khan TD. Then my mother got sick. Triple-negative breast cancer, the kind that kills fast if you don't throw everything at it. Insurance denied the treatment she needed. The hospital wanted $200,000 up front. I liquidated everything, my savings, my retirement, my future. It wasn't enough, so I took any job that would hire me. 3 jobs, 4, whatever it took. Alexander Thorne. Your mother, is she, Maya? She's fighting, the treatment is working, but the bills keep coming, and I keep pouring water for men who can't imagine that the woman filling their glass might be smarter than everyone else in the room. Silence. Alexander Thorne sits back in his chair. When he speaks again, his voice has changed, softer, more human. Alexander Thorne. My mother worked 2 jobs to put me through community college. She cleaned offices at night and waited tables during the day. She used to fall asleep at the kitchen table doing my homework with me because she was too exhausted to make it to bed. She died before I made my first million. Pancreatic cancer, no insurance, no experimental treatments, no billionaires offering to pay. I think about that every single day. He stands, walks to the window. The city spreads below him like a circuit board of light and possibility. Every glittering window a story, every shadow a dream deferred. Alexander Thorne, Conted. I built Thorne Industries to prove that intelligence matters more than pedigree, that talent can come from anywhere. Tonight, you reminded me why. Alexander Thorne turns from the window. The city lights behind him create a halo effect that would be almost comical if his expression weren't so serious. Alexander Thorne. Thorne Industries is launching a new quantitative research division. We're investing $2 billion over 5 years to build something that actually works. Something built on real mathematics, real ethics, real integrity. We need someone to lead it, someone who understands both the mathematics and the ethics. Someone who can build something that won't blow up in our faces the moment the market gets volatile. Someone who knows the difference between genuine insight and dressed-up fraud. Maya stares at him. The words don't fully register. Alexander Thorne, Con TD. I'm offering you the position of Chief Quantitative Officer, full hiring authority, complete research independence, a starting salary of $2 million annually with performance bonuses that could triple that figure. Maya Mr. Thorne. Alexander Thorne. I'm not finished. I'm also prepared to cover your mother's medical expenses. All of them, past and future. Every bill, every treatment, every experimental therapy she needs. Not as salary, as a signing bonus. Contingent on nothing except you're accepting the position. Your mother gets the care she needs whether you stay with the company for 1 year or 30. Maya's hands begin to shake. The number, the impossible, life-changing number, rings in her ears like a bell. $2 million, her mother's treatment, the debt that has been crushing her for 3 years, erased in a single conversation. The career she mourned, resurrected. The future she'd given up on, suddenly possible again. She thinks of every meal she skipped to save money, every bill she paid late, every dream she locked away in a box labeled someday that had started to feel like never. Maya. Why? You don't know me. You have no reason to. Alexander Thorne. I know you saved me $3 billion tonight. I know you demonstrated more intellectual courage in 15 minutes than most people show in a lifetime. And I know that talent, or like yours, doesn't come along often. When it does, you either recognize it or you lose it. He extends his hand. Alexander Thorne, Conti died. Dr. Okonkwo, what do you say? Maya stands slowly. Her mind races through possibilities, calculations, contingencies. But beneath all the mathematics, something simpler is happening. Something like hope. Maya. I have conditions. Alexander Thorne, a hint of a smile. I would expect nothing less. Maya. First, full transparency in all research practices. No shortcuts, no stolen work, no proprietary methodologies that can't withstand academic scrutiny. Alexander Thorne agreed. Maya second. I want to establish a scholarship fund. The Chen Okonkwo Fellowship for Underrepresented Mathematicians. Full funding for 5 students per year from backgrounds like mine. The kind of kids who teach themselves calculus from library books because no one else will teach them. The kind of kids who see equations as doorways to new worlds, not barriers to entry. Alexander Thorne. Done. I'll fund it personally. $50 million endowment to start. Your name on it. Professor Chen's name on it. And when those students graduate, they'll have guaranteed positions waiting for them, at Thorne Industries or wherever they want to go. Maya. And third, when we build this research division, we build it right. We hire based on ability, not pedigree. We create opportunities for people who've been overlooked, the brilliant minds working in warehouses and coffee shops because no one gave them a chance. We prove that genius doesn't have a dress code. We prove that the next great breakthrough might come from someone everyone else dismissed. Alexander Thorne looks at her for a long moment. The city pulses behind him, millions of lives and dreams compressed into towers of light. Finally, he nods slowly, and something in his expression shifts, the recognition of a kindred spirit. Alexander Thorne. You have yourself a deal, Dr. Okonkwo. Maya takes his hand. Her grip is firm, certain, the handshake of an equal. 3 years ago, she would have been pouring this man's water. Tonight, she's becoming his partner. The universe has a sense of irony, and sometimes, just sometimes, it's on your side. Maya. Call me Maya.